Got it.
We're recording.
Yeah.
Get it done in a timely manner.
Well, I was looking your way, Billy, but
I know you were.
This spring
Does it
from
really?
Wisconsin.
I started
you and I
the-
would have the same
Some other
Right.
lead on that,
He was a swimmer.
unfortunately. All right.
I know
Good
that.
morning.
And then
We're recording.
Mason's
All
at
right.
Cincinnati.
Good morning. We're going to start.
Since a year.
Call a meeting in order.
He's got a
First
good-
order of
he got a good thing
business
going for him.
is
Okay.
approval of minutes
touch it
from our
on.
March 7th meeting.
He's already been hired. He hasn't
So moved.
graduated yet.
Okay.
David,
$5,000
second.
bonus
Bill,
signing, and his
Any
salary will be
discussion?
$78,000 a year.
if not, all those in favor?
Cybersecurity.
Aye.
Can't tell me what it is.
Opposed?
Okay.
Motion carries. All right, moving on, any new business anyone has to bring forth?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Aaron.
I thought of something to share with you all. We have formed a downtown parking committee. As staff created a draft downtown parking plan, we formed a downtown parking committee, and we're going to do a parking study this year. In 2014, a parking study was conducted for downtown parking, and they counted about 14 blocks of parking just to understand how those spaces were utilized during different times of the day. This year, we're going to count 31 blocks of parking because downtown is a lot bigger in the customer and business district than it was in 2014. And so we're going to have a lot of good data. And if you would like, I can bring those findings forward to you as they're ready to share, if that's something this committee would like to learn more about.
All right.
So, Mr. Chairman, has the parking committee already met then?
Yeah, we have met we had one meeting so far.
Okay, and then who comprises, is this a formal committee appointed
It
by
is
legislation?
not a formal committee.
Is it
It's
staff?
more like a steering committee for the parking plan.
Yeah.
We have
Who would sit
representation.
on that?
We have
committee?
representation from City Commission, the major institutions like the State Theater, Downtown, Jet Express, residents, and the business community, including restaurant, bar, office. So we have a good representation
Good.
for.
Yeah.
Because
You were, before you were here, we actually had a formal citizens parking committee, and it was deemed to be unnecessary, and with the prevailing view that the staff was doing their job, they didn't need such a committee, but sounding, the community in this way seems prudent. Thank you.
Thank you for that info. It's a good start.
Through you, Mr.
Yes,
Chairman.
David.
Did I understand you like offering to share that with us if we wanted, and you're waiting for an affirmative response from us? Because I'm enthusiastic to share, to have that information shared with me in light of how interested the community is in that topic in particular.
Yes, thank you.
All right, very good. All right, anything else that anyone has for new business? If not, we'll move on to,
I guess new business is as good a place as any to. I've got a couple questions, and probably more under old business, but a question about the Deepwater property, since it's along the corridor. I heard some scuttlebutt about them possibly selling it to George Gradle, or Gradell, however we pronounce that. Does staff have any knowledge of anything about that?
Do not.
No. There was something else about some more scuttlebutt from some folks who were trying to start up North Coast Yacht Club with a 72-foot gill netter, that they're trying to find a location for it on the waterfront somewhere, anywhere from the old number 1 pier to our Meg Street pier, places they're looking to establish this. The fellow who was telling me this said that they had, that the yacht club was okay with the use of the Meg Street pier if this, and I don't know what kind of proposal they have made to the city on this. He said he had a meeting with John Orzak coming up. I just wondered if planning had any input about this at all. It sounds like they had their ducks in order so to speak.
Through the chair, I've had several meetings with the gentleman that had brought this concept to the city's attention. And at this point, we were not ready to move forward with leasing any space along the Meg Street Pier. From what I understand, in order to entertain that, it would have to be a vehicle that was mobile, and this was more stationary for permanent dockage at that space. And he has subsequently asked to meet with the city manager.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mike?
Oh, were you done, Dr. Seaman, were you done?
Pardon?
Were you done?
Yeah, well,
Yeah, okay.
go ahead.
So on that topic, we didn't buy off on a hotel on a public dock, and generally speaking, incrementally privatizing or chipping away at public access and making it even temporarily private, other than transient use to welcome visitors, isn't terribly well received, and I'm always skeptical and worried about incrementally nibbling away at the people's waterfront. So I would warn anyone who's thinking about that. Solving your problem on the public dime seems attractive, and you can think of all sorts of reasons why it's a great idea, but at the end of the day, the community tends not to buy it. So,
Well, to Chairman,
Bill?
I know there's a very successful yacht club downtown Chicago, the Columbia Yacht Club, which is previously a train ferry
oh yeah,
that is well established. So, I'd say on the Great Lakes, there's been precedent for such types of clubs. I just spoke with them. I happened to talk to this guy in the office the other day, and I thought it was somewhat interesting and something that might be worth them pursuing. They had a good bridge set up, and possibly if they can, who currently owns the number one coal dock? Is that still, is that the city and leased by the railroad?
yes.
Yeah, through the chair,
Yes.
those
Aaron?
properties over there, if you're saying number one being the short one farthest east, that is a city-owned property. I don't believe it's leased by anybody. The third coal dock is the one that's operational, and it is leased by the railroad.
So number one and number two are probably same status.
Through the chair, number two is slightly different status in that the ownership of it is somewhat obscured by railroad ownership of adjacent parcels. So we are still trying to figure out exactly who owns what over there. But yeah, both of those, as far as the lease, the first and the second, are not being leased at this point.
Mr. Chair, just one quick reply.
Okay,
Yes.
go ahead, Mike.
So, yeah, don't get me wrong, I'd be all for such a project, but there are privately owned parcels possibly available for sale or lease. So there are alternatives, whether they're, whether you need subsidy or not in the form of a gift from public property is an open question. In fact, ironically, we just talked about an entire marina that may be sold soon. So it's not like there are never any private alternatives. And I don't know the history of the Chicago Yacht Club. It's been there for a long, long time, possibly predating the shoreline easement. Chicago, of course, has no shortage of publicly accessible. It's world-renowned for its publicly accessible waterfront.
Judy?
I have a question regarding the Columbus Avenue streetscape. I'm wondering if there is going to be a comfort station in the Washington Park area similar to the one on the pier or the one in Shoreline Park? Because I think one is desperately needed there if you're going to have people walking up and down all the time. Does anybody know about that?
There's not any restrooms planned in Washington Park as far as I am understanding of any plans. It's not on the Columbus Avenue project.
Well, I think it's something that the city should look at. Something that's needed.
You remember the old one?
I do.
All right. Any other new business? Good discussion. All right, we'll move on to old business and new updates. Well, since we were talking about the streetscape, we'll go slide right into that.
Thank you. Through the chair, we are preparing to take the award of that contract for the Columbus Avenue project to the City Commission and the upcoming May 13th meeting. So if you can watch that agenda next week and see that communication come out and that agenda item on the City Commission agenda.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I wonder if it
Mr. Mayor.
might be appropriate for perhaps Mr. Klein to offer some comment on the bid alternates that we accepted and how we've driven that price down to give us a comfort zone as far as cost or perhaps extra cost associated with that project.
Defer to.
I didn't mean to catch you by surprise. I'm referring, if you can just share with this committee how we've gone with scored concrete at a significant savings, and that savings then will generate into a cushion for us to be in a good position if we do have unforeseen cost on that project.
Absolutely. So the base bid, it came in significantly under for the Great Lakes demolition. So we did have some flexibility to recommend awarding several of the alternates. The way we structured the Columbus Avenue bidding process was we had alternates up to alternate J. So we had a lot of different alternates to be able to choose from to make sure we were really responsible with the budget for that. Part of what we did was include a $350,000 construction contingency that will be held by the city. So if we get any needed, if they have to dig into bedrock for 2 extra days and it's going to cost more money, we have a pool of extra funds to pull from. So with the alternates that we are recommending to award, the total bid will be $4,841,212.01, which is more than $100,000 under, about $100,000 under what we were approved to bid for. So the approved engineer's estimate for bidding was $4,948,663. So we have $100,000 under that, what we were awarded to spend, and then also we have that $350,000 contingency within the construction budget as well.
That sounds good.
Thanks.
Thank you for that. Anything else? Any questions on the streetscape? All right, we'll move on to Jackson Street parking lot and potential hotel.
Absolutely. Thank you very
Colleen.
much. And through the chair, I'm Colleen Gilson. I don't normally come to your meetings, but I'm the Director of Community Development and certainly available to come at your request. This is great timing because we've been having a lot of conversations with the project development team. And just this morning, I responded to a series of questions that have been asked of us by the Sandusky Register. So I'm going to use my responses to them to update you here today. And one of their first question is, what is the status of the project? And project developers, Fairmount Properties and North Coast Inns remain highly interested in developing the project site. The project developers have requested consideration for a 6-month extension to their MOU to continue their project due diligence. The question then was posed, what is the main holdup or a holdup to their development? And the original RFP that was let by the city in 2022 prioritized the development of a hotel and a conference center on that site. The city did indicate in that RFP an openness to a multi-faceted project. The selected development team proposed additional components beyond the hotel and the conference center, mainly residential and commercial. That resulted in financial modeling which projected the need for a greater amount of subsidy than they believe the project can attract. So the development team is proposing the elimination of the residential development and a decrease slightly in the commercial space, and intends to model the financing projections accordingly. They have also, with the support of the Greater Sandusky Partnership, the development team is engaging in an updated study to best guide the sizing of the hotel and the conference center. The study is commencing in the next few weeks and is expected to turn around in around 60 days. Simultaneously, that development team will be exploring the use of Port Authority financing for the parking garage structure. A question that I think is worth answering here is, why is this project important to the city? And the project would activate a space, as you know, that's currently a single use as a parking lot into a multi-use development. The project will retain the ability to park cars, public space included, as well as meet a growing demand for hotel space in Sandusky and in Erie County. Also, it will expand Sandusky's ability to attract events, private events, weddings, conferences. All of that activity, as you know, increases tax base and impacts existing local businesses by increasing visitors to the city. One of the questions that was asked by the register is, what is the estimated new cost of the project? And of course, we can't answer that at that time, since financial modeling is expected to take place in that 6-month expansion. Should the city move forward with the extension, they'll focus on those new projections. And as the financing, as for financing as an issue, the answers to that, again, are that the project as modeled or as proposed by the Fairmount and North Coast team would not have likely attracted the amount of subsidy it would need. So I'm happy to come back. This has to go before City Commission for approval, and City Manager Orzik and I will spend some time over the next week socializing that with commissioners and hopefully bringing that to them at the end of this month.
Okay, thank you for that update. Mark?
Yes, I do have one question on that. So the project is basically being revised. And before we had copies, or at least I did, a copy of the original proposal. I think it was like 417 parking spots. It was like 70 plus rooms. And of course, the private aspects that were incurred in that. Are we going to receive, when the new proposal comes through, what the updated and new proposal is?
I would be happy to share that with you.
That would be great. I would appreciate that very much.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Other questions?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mike.
So this is exciting to hear that the project is continuing. I had a couple questions. You said there will be parking, and I think everyone knows that the parking lot was a temporary situation. Certainly as a planning commissioner, been there for 20 years and through a couple of proposals. We know that parking is not the best long-term use for such a central location in our downtown. So this is going to be fantastic. How much parking are we going to have is going to be a big question. Was this addressed by the parking committee? Is there a design criteria that specifies a minimum number of spaces as part of this project? That's just the first question. But.
Yeah, there is criteria within that RFP, and first and foremost, to retain the public spots that are there now has been.
Retains the number, obviously, exactly. Not the spots. Okay.
The number of public spaces that are there today.
So the only true constraint they have at this point, other than approval, it would be that no parking spots are lost. That's reassuring. Okay. Now, you did mention that this has to go before the city commission. Is this being done under the aegis of a PUD, or is this being done would this project conform to the current downtown business zoning?
I'm going to ask my colleague here for some assistance.
My expectation is that it would conform to the downtown business zoning district. It would not be
I
any
see.
special zoning.
Right, so there would be the only approval, sometimes it's helpful to have some input or support from the planning commission, but the only approval you would need from the planning commission, if that's true, would be a site plan approval, right?
Site plan approval.
So as a BCC member, and I'll put my thumb on the scale because I'm also obviously a member of the planning commission, I'd say that it would be helpful to keep the planning commission apprised anyway, so that they aren't faced with a take it or leave it proposal when you're that far down the road on a site plan approval.
Understand.
Thank you. Other questions, comments? Okay. We have a laundry list that there are no updates on. But I didn't know if anybody had any questions that they wanted to bring up on those items.
Just
Bill?
through you, just wondering if there's any updates on the battery park redevelopment.
Through the chair, the development team was present at the last commission meeting and provided an update.
Would have liked to have attended, but I didn't get a chance. So
Right.
I'll just go back through the video.
Wonderful. As I understand it now, at the presentation, they reminded the commission as well as viewers and staff of the project content and walked through a series of the financial modeling that they're doing at this point and the securing of grants that they need in order to begin the initial phases of the project, which is really shoring up all of the outside of the perimeter of the project, working on piers, the marina site as well.
I've got an interest from both sides as a past commenter of the Sailing Club, as well as being on the board of the Maritime Museum. So if you can keep those two groups apprised, we'd appreciate it.
You bet.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah, through you,
Dave.
Mr. Chair. Point of curiosity, and I didn't avail myself of watching the meeting, but is there any significant feeling that the plan that was originally brought forth and approved some years ago when it came up for public discussion, I got the impression that that's kind of being massaged and changed around a little bit, and what actually may be built is at some significant variance from that, or not so?
Through the chair, we have not received any new site plans. We have not received any alterations to the plan that was presented in the PUD that was, would you say?
It's the preliminary.
Preliminary approval. We have not received any updates to those plans.
So the last plan, I kind of remember, involved, I think it's Water Street, basically continuing and then squaring off and then coming back to, is that,
Market.
yeah, Market. And that's pretty firm, or still firm at this point.
That's what was approved in the preliminary development plan, which went through Planning Commission and City Commission. That's the first step in the PUD zoning process. And then they have 18 months to bring a final development plan forward, which is October of this year, and that can be extended. I believe it's City Commission that has the authority to extend that if it would be needed to be extended. If they wanted to significantly change the development, it would be a restart of the PUD process, and they'd have to bring a new preliminary plan through Planning Commission.
So they have significant incentive to keep within the confines of that original
Yes,
plan.
Absolutely, yes. I'll also mention, we had a question come through about what can they do right now? Because obviously they can't go build any of those buildings that were in the preliminary plan. They haven't finished their PUD zoning, but they do have a functional marina on that site. They could replace all the boat docks, completely renovate that building, shore up the infrastructure around the edges of the site because they have leased that property. And none of those will require further approvals because they have a lease on that property. If they want to build anything new, that would be a site plan or, an amendment of the PUD process.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Mr. Miller, one of the, I thought, significant changes that was presented to us in their pitch at a commission meeting a couple weeks ago was they have taken what was a 1,000-car parking garage and split it into 2 parking garages, one about a little less than 600 and one a little more than 350. And I think that's a very positive approach because I think they realized that putting one massive parking garage there to serve the hotel, the condo guest, and apartment dwellers is not one size fits all. It's not a very good model. So they have split that up to where the 600-unit parking garage would serve perhaps apartments and hotel dwellers, where the other would serve the condominium owners. I thought that was a very positive outlook. Square footage I believe is staying the same, about 50,000 square feet of retail space, meaning restaurants and some type of commercial space. And then their counts on hotel rooms and condominiums are not at all fluctuating, seem to be much the same. Condo numbers may be shrinking somewhat because they found that their demand for condominiums is so great at the moment, but people want larger condominiums. They don't want to buy a condominium 800-900 square feet. They want 1,200, 1,300, 1,400 square feet. So that number may go from 68 down to 60 or 55, depending on what they're selling. But they shared with us, they shared with me personally, that they've had such a dramatic request for condominiums that they believe that will be the item that will really launch this project. I hope they're right.
Thank you. I think that's very helpful.
All right.
Mr. Chairman. Oh,
Bill.
Along those lines, is Maroos responsible for the maintenance of the current parking lot? And the ingress egress for the sailing club has been diminished without access behind the police department, and with the roadway coming in being cut off, the parking lot is pretty rutted up, a lot of potholes along the tennis courts there, and I was wondering who's responsible for maintaining that?
Through the chair, Maroos is responsible for maintaining the parking lot and the facilities out there, but access at the far east end of Washington has not been cut off. That's still available. You can still get through that
So
way.
you can get behind the...
Yes, there's been a portion of the asphalt that's been removed. It's just stone.
Okay.
Eventually, it will be cut off, and we're hoping to time that with the reopening of the parking lot closest to the tennis courts, which will then open that straight access back to the sailing club again. But we also added stone at the end of East Market so that there could still be access at the end of Market Street to the sailing club and to Battery Park. So there are multiple ways to get in, and later this week we should be, or early next week, we should be opening up the entrance at East Water as well. We just poured the concrete for the Water Street project there, so there will still be 3 forms of access to the sailing club and to Battery Park.
Thank you.
All right.
Chairman.
Mike.
Yeah, echoing Dr. Siemens' comment about maintenance there. Yeah, I wouldn't call them man-eating potholes, but there's a tendency when something's coming down the road to just stop all maintenance, and some cold patch here and there would go a long way. Also, and I think the city's been diligent in making sure that there's access. The trouble is nobody knows where it is. So I might suggest that the sailing club just construct some simple movable signs so that the members from out of town can, don't have to drive around the block 3 times to figure out how to get in. I did notice that the pathway or the route behind the new police department is now open. It was obviously deliberately closed off with a pile of gravel for a while there to encourage the other, to reduce the traffic that might interfere with construction. I noticed that's open again because it appears that the plan is to maintain two access routes one way or another. Is that that's what's happened anyway. So I want to express my appreciation for Commissioner Brady's comment about the parking garage. The parking garage, the parking part of the PUD, Battery Park PUD, was probably the most awkward part of it. It's a pretty neat plan, pretty exciting plan from a development point of view. The parking garage is a little awkward. I was very happy to learn that it's getting better. I like parking garages that are incorporated. I think everybody would prefer parking garages that are incorporated as part of the building and not just plunked down. Even though that's cheaper, it's not necessarily optimal. I also was very happy to listen to Maru's emphasize that their intent is to improve public access and that access to the marina area in particular will be improved. So that's a bright spot. If that happens and we can convince the community of that, then opposition should melt away. We should expect this to take longer than anybody thinks. It always takes longer. It always takes at least a year longer, if not more. So we got to be patient with it. But it's going to happen, and I think it's going to, on balance, improve access to the water for the public.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes,
Mr. Zilloff, one of the points that we made during Marissa's presentation was I asked them to go on the record that, much to the comments that you're making, that this is never going to be a gated community. This is going to be open to the public 24/7, 360 days a year to access the entire outside of that pier, the lighthouse landing that will be one of the center focal points. And I think when that happens, we all win. I know you're an advocate for public access, as I believe our commission is also. So they were willing to go on record to make that statement. How they secure their boat slips are on the piers to boat slips. There's a real easy way for them to do that. The other point I'd like to make is that parking, such a sensitive issue in this community right now. But I believe you're all going to be impressed when you get a look at the renderings, or would look at the renderings. The parking garages that they're installing, they look like the rest of the facility. There's a way now to take the old style parking garage, which looks like a prison barricade, and make it look like the rest of your development. And they've done a great job, at least, of portraying that in their drawings. That, it's hard to get excited about parking garages, but it's such a sensitive issue right now that anything you do to improve that look, I think, goes a long way with residents and visitors.
Well, I would encourage our members, if you haven't, that maybe most of us already done so, is to watch that presentation at the city commission meeting, because we don't always see it coming, but it was I kind of follow the agenda, and I thought it was reassuring.
All right, great. Hopefully we can all get a chance to look at that. Sounds good. All right, other items under that A through J under 4 that anyone would have a question about? Or any other projects that aren't on the list that we have talked about previously?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
just to ask Aaron if I could, on the wetlands and I know that we were almost full on the cells that we had. Any luck on moving forward with other locations, or?
Through the chair, the second location we're still trying to finalize an agreement on. We do have a very, very, very small amount of available capacity in the southern cell of the existing wetlands, but not for a full dredge cycle. We're going to let it settle for another year or two and see what comes of it. But the Corps of Engineers really needs another location. So we're still proceeding with trying to finalize an agreement with another property owner to see if we can abut them. But we have had, our consultant has had really good conversations with their leadership. So it's kind of interesting, the temporary seeding of the existing wetlands. I know at the commission meeting, we did award a contract to do that, and I was very hopeful that they would do it with a drone, and that's what they ended up doing. So it was really cool to see that thing flying around out there. It was huge, 110 pounds of seed it could hold at one time.
Wow.
Amazing technology today.
Yeah, it is.
Thank you.
All right. Any other items? We don't have any members of the community here, so we don't have any community input, so David?
Motion to
Well,
adjourn.
I kind of waited for community input just to see how long I could drag out this meeting, but
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Miller.
But I wanted to comment, probably everybody else in the world has already done it, late to the party, I know. The Eclipse event, not that Bayfront Corridor is really any way responsible, but I was just so proud to be a Sanduskyan, the way we represented ourselves to the world, and what a great event that was. I know it took a lot of effort and dedication on recreation staff and others, but I just thought it was masterfully done, and that I'm so proud of how we represented ourselves. I just wanted to say that to somebody.
That's
Second
great.
that.
You're here.
Yep, absolutely. Was a great weekend. Great weekend. All right. Other items? Now.
Motion to adjourn.
All right,
Second.
motion. All right, we're adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Good meeting.
Mark, you going to Port or where are you going?
Ford.
Work.